Hey, this is Matt once again. We're about to another video, and this is a paid request for. What's actually kind of funny about this is, it's as you tell, the talented Mr. Ripley from 1999. The ironic thing is, around the same time, by a different person, by Ryan, I got a request for Purple Noon, and I'm like looking through the films. I'm like, oh, these are based on the same novel. So it's just funny that I got the request for two movies based on the same novel. But I mean, that was it. So sorry, I just had to think about that from just based on this novel from 1955. And there's been a few interpretations. I know the novel Mr. Ripley has gotten a lot of. There's been a few sequels to it, and the other adaptations. I think one of the books was adapted, and John Malkovich played the Ripley character. I think there's another one in Barry Pepper. And then there was that show, which, honestly, I was requested, I think the first or second, like the first one or two episodes. Couldn't really get into it. But I know there's a lot of people who did like it. But anyway, I'm going off tangent. For anyone interested in requesting any type of videos, movie reviews, re-reviews, random thought streams, commentaries, video game playthroughs, whatever the case, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. Links are down below in the info box, and I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. For those who sent them, thank you. I do appreciate it. And I would say, based on the few bits I remember of the show, the other film I'm going to review, Purple Noon, and this one, this was easily my favorite of those. Now, from what I understand, it does take, how do I put it? It does change up the character from the book. Because from what I understand in the book, Mr. Ripley, Tom Ripley, is more of this con man. He's much more of this sociopath. He's much more of this diabolical villain and manipulator. Here, he's much more of a sad character. When the murder happens, it's more like self-defense. And there's almost a part of you that at times almost want to root for him, but then he does things that, are just too far. So he is a villain, but at the same time, he's a much more sad. He's much more repressed. You tell he's a guy that wants to belong. He doesn't want to be a nobody. He wants to be a somebody. He wants to be loved and wanted. There's a lot more of the kind of homoerotic tones that maybe he's gay and he wants to let that go. But then, he also wants to be loved back. So it may not be like the book. Well, I've never read the book, but from what I've heard people say and saw that people say, it's a different interpretation. It's just that compared to Purple Noon, which honestly I wasn't a fan of. I think because I saw this film and then I saw that and I saw the similarities, so I kind of knew where it was going. So it wasn't as fresh in my mind. And then I did what they're doing with the character and how it was in the book, but I like this interpretation more. I just find it more fascinating of a character, more interesting as an individual, which got me into the story a bit more. And I do think it's well made, it's well directed. It's the guy who did The English Patient, but I liked this a bit more. It is long. It's about 2 hours and 20 minutes, so it is a pretty lengthy film. I don't think it need to be that long, but I do think it's shot well enough. And the cast, I think the cast does a really good job. Matt Damon, I thought, did a really solid job, where you tell he wants to be loved, and there's certain things he doesn't want to do, but he feels like he needs to do. And when he feels certain things are slipping by or falling apart, or he's going to be pushed aside, you see the hurt and pain in his eyes. And I've always liked Matt Damon. I know there's the Matt Damon Team America, which the only reason those guys did that was because they made the puppet a Matt Damon, and it was something got screwed up, so the face was screwed up, and they didn't have time to make another one. So because the face was screwed up, they go, it's okay, have him talk like this because his face is screwed up. That's really the only reason. I think even Matt Damon's like, he didn't know that, so he's like, I don't know why they have me sound like that. Do I talk like that? It's like, no, it's just a joke, because the puppet's face was screwed up. But I like Good Will Hunting. I liked his stuff in Dogma. The Martian, I really did enjoy The Martian. He's good in The Departed. I'm not a fan of the Bourne Identity films, but he's not the problem. I'm just, the stories I didn't get into, I'm not really big on the way the action scenes are handled, especially in the sequels. But he's not the problem. But yeah, Matt Damon I always thought was a good actor. And I think he does a really solid job here. Jude Law, he had not done a whole lot before this. So definitely after this, he got a lot more work. Especially with the director. The director worked with Jude Law a couple times in some of his films later on. He does a good job as Dickie. You really get a sense of why people gravitate towards this guy, why he's kind of, whatever room he goes into, he could be the center of attention. Gwyneth Paltrow plays Jude Law's girlfriend. Cate Blanchett is this girl who Matt Damon meets, pretends to be someone else for a bit, and then from time to time would meet up with her again. Philip Seymour Hoffman, may he rest in peace, he plays another friend of Jude Law, who starts suspecting some stuff about Matt Damon's character. Even people, you see, what's his, James Rebhorn? You see him at the beginning and at the end. I've seen him in a few stuff. I think, I could be wrong, but I think he's the guy in Independence Day. The guy who's kind of, didn't tell him about Area 51 and then eventually does. I think that's him. I could be wrong on that. Because I'm bad with, I do screw up at times. There's also Detective, you see more at the end, Philip Baker Hall, which I remember as Chris Tucker's boss in Rush Hour. He's done a lot of other stuff, but I remember him in that. I think he comes back briefly in Rush Hour 3, unless that was a cutscene. But yeah, he's the Chris Tucker's boss in the first Rush Hour. So I really do like the cast. The locations overseas, very nicely picked out. And yeah, I thought Matt Damon did a good job, so it made me intrigued to see where this was going. So the plot is, it takes place in the 1950s. This guy thinks Matt Damon was friends with Jude Law back to the day of Princeton. And I'm like, you think a rich guy would make sure this guy is who he really is? Which actually the detective, Philip Baker Hall, kind of mentions that later on. So I like that at least someone kind of mentions that later on. But anyway, the guy says, listen, I'm going to offer you this money, go to Europe and bring Jude Law back home. He goes, and you can tell that his life isn't really the best, where he's not the main piano player, he's a replacement piano player, so he's not even the star of that. His place is a shithole, falling apart, there's people fighting, and it looks like the damn ceiling's going to cave in from their fighting. And you tell that he's not really in the best place. So he doesn't like himself. That's why I view this character in this incarnation. He hates himself. He does not like himself. He's a guy that wants to be someone other than him. There's the line, I'd rather be a fake somebody than a real nobody. So he feels like he's just complete loser in life. That's why when Jude Law tells him these things, it hits him so emotionally, because that's how he feels about himself. And so when he's starting to go over and he meets Cate Blanchett, he gives a fake name. That he's Dickie, he's Jude Law's character. Because I can't tell him it's me, because I'm a nobody. Eventually, he does meet Jude Law and Gwyneth Paltrow. And you can tell that Jude Law's character is a bit of a dick from the get-go. Like, oh, you're so white. Gwyneth Paltrow, of course you like it. You're white as like he is. You're so white. I'm like, he's not an albino. He's not powder. Or what the fuck, but just to show you how much of a dick Jude Law is. But Jude Law is a good actor. I've liked him in other stuff. Very capable actor. And you tell, like, he's got that charisma and charm. They'll go to, like, jazz clubs or other stuff, and just he'll command the room. And you can see why Matt Damon is charmed by him, wants to be him, wants his life. There's even a bit where he's trying out his clothes, and Jude Law is a bit freaked out by it. But you see a lot of bonding between the two. A lot of bonding. Like, Jude Law gets impressed that the guy can mimic his dad so well. So there's a chunk of time where there's bonding, which is fine to see how Matt Damon is just enjoying this time, how Gwyneth Paltrow kind of sticks up for him, you know, this luxury and going to all these places. He's getting the money from Jude Law's dad so he can, you know, get some different clothes or other stuff. Until eventually Philip Seymour Hoffman enters. And now it seems like Philip Seymour Hoffman is more for Jude Law's attention. And even Gwyneth Paltrow tells Matt Damon, yeah, you know, when he's got his eyes on you, it's like you're the center of the world, but when he doesn't, you feel the effects of that loss. So you kind of understand that maybe she's, you know, felt at times pushed away by Jude Law. And, you know, some events happen where this one girl Jude Law was with drowned herself because he was with her and then slighted her. And then you also see that he feels a bit of guilt. Matt Damon keeps it quiet and goes, hey, I'm the bro you never had. And I'm the brother you never had, and you're the brother I've never had. And again, you can tell that maybe there's some kind of attraction between the two. There's a scene where Jude Law's taking a bath, and the way him and Matt Damon, you tell there's some sexual tension. So maybe Jude Law, there's a bit of him that's bi, but he doesn't want to admit it because that's so beneath him or so weak or whatever. See, this is what I'm talking about. Like, they throw this stuff in, but it feels as part of the story and part of the character of Matt Damon, not message. We need to have a message here. It felt like it's part of the story. And maybe that's why at times where it leads to why Jude Law gets animosity towards him. And I know I'm spoiling the film, so spoilers, but I mean, it's a film from 1999, so if you don't want to hear it, you know. I would say the film, while I think the film's a bit too long, there's little bits here and there, I think the cast and the story was interesting enough to keep my attention, and it's a well-made movie. But Jude Law says they don't part ways, and you tell that affects Matt Damon. And then when they're on this boat, and I've talked about this in the Purple Noon movie, the French film with Alain Delon, he pretty much has the goal that he's going to kill this guy and kind of manipulates the situation and eventually stabs the guy. People say that's more like the book. Here, it seems like they're just on a boat relaxing, and Jude Law just keeps honing down on Matt Damon. You know, you could be a real leech. It's boring. You're boring. You give me the creeps. And just, it even goes up and starts slapping the shit out of Matt Damon. Like, slaps him and does all this stuff. Whether because Jude Law doesn't want to admit that he's bi, whatever the hell you want to sink your teeth into, or you just think he's just an asshole. He'll use you up. When he doesn't need you anymore, he'll throw you away. Friends, family, whatever. And then it gets to a point where Matt Damon gets an oar and hits him. And then he even stops and he apologizes and we need to get you some help, and he tries to stop the bleeding. And then Jude Law attacks him. And then it's almost as if Matt Damon has to defend himself and kills him. Which, again, for understanding, is very different from the novel. So I don't know if people who like the novel would hate this movie or this interpretation. But yeah, I found it interesting. And so while he's not an angel, he's not perfect, he even says that he's good at forging signatures and telling lies. And it seems like, yeah, he's good at that, but this is now going to another realm. And he hides the body, or he throws the body overboard. And now he's a nobody, getting a chance to be a somebody. And so using his forging and lies, and he'll say that Dickie is at this, and he's at this hotel, and that they talk to each other, and brings up this lie that Jude Law left Gwyneth Paltrow, and he's over there in Rome or wherever, and he's doing this stuff, and then because he's able to forge and do it well, he's able to get the finances of Jude Law, and he's living the luxurious life, and he meets Cate Blanchett again, and remember, he told her he was Dickie, so now people think he is, and forged documents, and now he's just got nice clothes, nice apartments, nice everything, and living this lie. Until eventually Philip Seymour Hoffman comes by and says, well, wait a minute, I thought Dickie was here, and wait, you said this is Dickie's place? No, this isn't his. This doesn't look like his place at all. He would never furnish it like this. I mean, this place doesn't look like it. These belongings don't look like it. In fact, the only one that looks like Dickie is you. So now Matt Damon knows that Philip bit more on his tail, and then eventually has to kill him. Well, has to. In his mind, he has to. With like a bust hits him in the head. So he hides that body, makes it seem as if Dickie killed him and then ended his own life. And Gwyneth Paltrow kind of believes in it as well until she finds these rings, and then she's adamant that he's the one who did it. And because he's made such an impression on other people, and because he did this job of pretending to be people. And remember, this is 1950s. It's not like you get CSI in and have all this wealth of evidence. CSI, security cameras, and if it was that, it'd be a whole different story. But this is, again, 1950s, so none of that is a thing. So the dad and the detective, Philip Baker Hall, and again, they go in, and they pretty much believe that, well, Jude Law has had a history of violence, history of anger, and they sadly believe what happened, that he killed this guy, then ended his life. And no one believes Gwyneth Paltrow. And then eventually it seems like he gets away with it. He met this guy named Peter, started a relationship with him. They're on this boat. Cate Blanchett says hi. They kiss. Peter goes, what the hell is that? And you tell, like, again, how messed up this guy is, where he's trying to talk to him. He's saying all these nice things about Tom Ripley, but he's like, I don't believe you. But yet he's crying about it. So it makes you wonder, like, what's his mentality really is. That whether it be paranoia, whether it be, no, there's no way this doctor like me, and I can't get found out, and or maybe that was kind of his ability to live just as Tom Ripley, but now it seems like, no, he's got to live as Dickie, and pretty much the idea he kills the guy, and he's kind of sitting there in his room, and just this figure that, you know, he is a murderer, but just a kind of a sad, pathetic guy. Soul has left the building a while ago, and it gives you some room, some food for thought as to who this guy is or his mentality and all. And again, I think Matt Damon really sold the part well. I think that's why I'm getting a bit deeper into it, because if in the hands of a weaker actor, it'd be like, whatever. But again, I think the cast does a good job. I don't think it need to be 2 hours and 20 minutes long. At the same time, I can't think of a whole lot of stuff to cut out, big scene-wise. Trying to think. What else I would have preferred. Like I said, I think for the film the story's trying to tell, does a pretty decent job at it. It's not the type of film I'd go on my way to rewatch, weekly, monthly basis. But it's still a pretty decent film. Like I said, I probably saw, well, I didn't say that. I probably saw this once back in the day, and I didn't remember much about it. And I didn't, because I remember hearing about the Ripley character because of that TV show and stuff. I forgot this is how the character, how different it was in this movie compared to other interpretations. But yeah, for me, it just made him a bit more intriguing of a character. That there's a bit more depth to him. I'm not saying you always need that. There are great characters that are just evil and just assholes. But for this, I was a bit more intrigued by it. The Peter character, he pops up from time to time. I still think he was a bit underdeveloped of a character. There are times I would forget about him, honestly. About Peter. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, that's him. And then I would forget about him. Oh yeah, okay, now I don't know if it was the actor or the way the character's written, but I thought he was kind of all the characters, he was the more forgettable one. And because he's kind of important at the end, I don't know. I don't know if it, like I said, I don't know if it was the actor that made him that way for me, or what, but I just thought he was kind of forgettable. So it made the ending not as strong to me as maybe it could have been. Cate Blanchett does fine. I mean, yeah, there's a part of me that goes, you could have taken her out of the movie. But again, I was fine with her in it as well. Especially for that part of the ending and why they have that part in there. And then it makes you wonder, okay, now he's going to go with Cate Blanchett and pretend to be Dickie. But at the same time, the guy's father gave him this money, and so now he can live that life without being Dickie. So then there's that part that goes, well, why does he need to be Dickie then? I seem like maybe he should instead try to kill Cate Blanchett, because it doesn't need, because being Dickie doesn't do anything anymore, because the terror's now dead. So it seemed like it'd be more beneficial for him to be Tom Ripley. So it seemed like maybe he should try to kill Cate Blanchett. But at the same time, I think she's part of a rich family, so maybe that's where he wants to go more towards. But again, they established that this is a guy that's more about, he wants to live that rich life, and now he has it. So maybe it seems like maybe he really doesn't believe this guy. That because he saw him that way, now he feels like maybe he could never earn this guy's trust again. He's saying all these things. I don't know. Maybe the ending was, I'm sure to many people the ending was much more clear. To me, maybe I'm just overthinking it. And it's much more clear than I'm making it out to be. So hey, if people want to mention their interpretations of any of that, of the ending, what his thinking was, I'd love to hear it. I'd love to read it in the comments section. I'd love to read it. and maybe by reading some, it would clear my head a bit more how I feel about the ending. But overall, I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was a pretty good flick. It's definitely, I would say, my favorite of the director's work. And yeah. With that said, thanks for watching. Take care. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye for now.